What is up, bros and broettes? I'm Inkslasher, and today we're going to be talking about 5 Call of Duty games that never got released. Now, these Call of Duty games are really interesting because they're not like the current Call of Duty games that we see today. And not only that, is that there's a lot of these things that actually never got released. Now, these games range anything from a game that's Roman warfare to one that's a top-down tactical shooter game. And these games we've never even heard about, let alone seen. And today I actually have some gameplay from some of these games that we've never actually seen before. So if you guys enjoyed the video, it would be fantastic if you'd hit that like button. But without further ado, let's get into talking about these games that never actually existed. Now, the first Call of Duty game that never actually came to be is called Call of Duty Combined Forces. Now, this was supposed to be a sequel to Call of Duty Finest Hour. And if you don't know what Finest Hour is, it was a Call of Duty game released for, I believe, GameCube, PlayStation 2, and PC. Now, the interesting thing about this game is it's not developed by Infinity Ward or Treyarch. It was actually developed by a company called Spark Unlimited. So Spark Unlimited created Call of Duty Finest Hour and then wanted to make a sequel called Call of Duty Combined Forces that they projected was going to cost $10.5 million. The only reason why this game didn't exist is because Activision only wanted to pay them $2 million to produce the game. After they said that this $10.5 million mark, Activision actually dropped Spark Unlimited as a company, and they never produced a Call of Duty game again. This is odd to think about because if Spark Unlimited actually kept creating Call of Duty games, it may not be Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer today. It may be Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Spark Unlimited today, which is really insane to think about. Now, we don't have any gameplay for this one, unfortunately, as it didn't really get into development, but we do have is this concept image sent over to Activision by Spark Unlimited as a proposal to actually create the game. The next game that was never released is called Call of Duty Tactics. Now, this game was supposed to be a strategy game that was kind of like an over-the-shoulder kind of game. It wasn't really first-person, it wasn't really third-person, and you'll see what I mean in a second when I show you the gameplay. Now, this one was supposed to be made by Vicarious Visions. Now, Vicarious Visions is a very interesting developer because they mainly worked on handheld games. Whether that be Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, whatever it was, they mainly worked on handheld games. However, this game was supposed to be out for Xbox 360, PC, and PlayStation. However, this game obviously never came to be. So what you're looking at here is some prototype gameplay for Call of Duty Tactics. And as you can see, it's not really a first-person shooter, it's not really a third-person shooter, and it's not really a top-down tactical game. It's more of like an over-the-shoulder tactical game. It kind of reminds me of something like Halo Wars. Now, the interesting thing about this is there's no timeline based around this game, so I have no idea when this was set to be released, around which other Call of Duty games, or whether it was supposed to completely replace a Call of Duty game like a Modern Warfare 3 or something like that. All I know is that it was in development, but never actually got released. So the next one, and the one you've probably heard the most about, was called Call of Duty Roman Wars. Now, once again, this one was set to be made by Vicarious Visions, the same team that was supposedly working on Call of Duty Tactics. Now, the interesting thing about this one is it was in development in 2008, so we don't really know when it was set to come out, but it was internally, so by Vicarious Visions, called Call of Duty Fireteam. So this one was set to take place during the Roman Wars, and it was a mix between third and first-person game, which we've never seen before in a Call of Duty game other than if you played third-person mode online. So if you're wondering some of the things that Vicarious Vision has actually released, some of the main things are Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 and 3 for Game Boy Advance, Spider-Man 3 for Game Boy Advance. They also made Call of Duty World Tour for the Wii, and some of the more recent things are the Skylanders expansions, which we know is an incredibly popular game now. Now, as you can see, these images that you're seeing on screen here are just prototype images, and the really interesting thing about this is the reason why this game didn't get released. It was full-fledged supposed to get released, it was funded and all of this stuff. The reason why it didn't is because the other Call of Duty games at the time were doing so well, specifically Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. So if that game didn't do as well as it did, we could be sitting today playing different Call of Duty games like Roman Warfare, which is an incredibly interesting prospect to actually look at. The next Call of Duty game that was never released was called Call of Duty Devil's Brigade. Now, this one was an interesting one. This one was set to be a third-person only Call of Duty game. And if you remember, if you were a player of Call of Duty back around Modern Warfare 2, this was a really big thing at the time. There was a rumor going around that there was going to be a third-person only Call of Duty game. And obviously, now we know that never happened. Now, this was set to be released by a company called Underground Development. And as far as notable games that they've released, there's really none. The only one I can really see on their list is a Space Invaders game that they remastered for Nintendo 64. But other than that, nothing really special on their part. Now, this Call of Duty game was set to take place during World War II and focus on combat in Italy. Now, like I said, this was supposed to be a third-person Call of Duty game where you could kind of direct your troops using the D-pad. Now, I do actually have some gameplay for this game that looks interesting, but overall, it's interesting to see that Call of Duty never actually went in the direction of a third-person shooter game. I believe during Modern Warfare 2, at the time that this rumor was going around, this Call of Duty game was set to be released to kind of compete with games like Gears of War. As far as why this game was cancelled, I don't actually have any information on that. If I were to guess, it would be that Call of Duty actually didn't want to stray from the first-person shooter formula, because as we know, we are in the future, and we have seen that the Call of Duty franchise has never really strayed too far from that first-person shooter formula that we know today. So next up, we've got the Call of Duty game that I find by far the most interesting out of the 5 we've talked about today, and it's called Call of Duty Vietnam. Now, it was originally titled Call of Duty Fog of War, and guess who was working on this game? Not Treyarch, not Infinity Ward, but Sledgehammer Games. Now, they were making this game around the time that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 was being made, and they've been developing the game for about 8 months, but at the time, after working on it for 8 months, they only had about 15 minutes of gameplay. So at that point, Activision came to them and said, okay, you've been taking way too long to create 15 minutes of gameplay. How about you guys go over to Infinity Ward and actually help them create Modern Warfare 3, a Call of Duty game that we know was incredibly successful. But at this point, Call of Duty Vietnam did not get cancelled, it simply got delayed. It wasn't to be made for the next little while, but as we know after that, Sledgehammer Games then went on to create Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, not Call of Duty Vietnam. But the big question I'm asking today, could Call of Duty Vietnam, this game that they started working on back during Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, could Call of Duty Vietnam be the next game that Sledgehammer is releasing? Are they going to be bringing back the idea that they had at the very beginning and creating this as Call of Duty 2017? The only answer I have for that is only time will tell, but if we look at here on the screen, these are the concept images made for Call of Duty Vietnam, and they look pretty damn badass, if you ask me. But guys, that is it. That is 5 Call of Duty games that never actually got released. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, it would be fantastic if you could hit that like button. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can check out my Twitch, Twitter, Let's Play channel, all of that down in the description. But until next time, guys, peace out.